Welcome back, everyone, to the next installment of Chaos Child. We experienced the aftermath of 4 days ago. Took another look in our newspaper club room with the map. We'll see what we can do after that. The sun set early in late autumn. Just like I said over lunch, there was no club meeting that day. I had a short conversation with Sarika and then headed straight for Aoba dorm. Even so, it was already starting to get dark, and it was easy to imagine some hidden attacker lurking in the shadows. But there was more than just fear inside me now. Of course I was afraid of the murderer. I was afraid of being killed in some horrible way and of dying in incredible pain. But I could also feel a black rage rearing its ugly head inside me. You're going to pay for what you did to Yui. Whoever the fuck you are, I will find you, and I will tear you into tiny, bloody little shreds. Those feelings grew inside me with each passing moment.
Ah, Kimi, Miyashiro Takeru-kun da ne. Warui kedo, chotto hanashi o kikasete kurenai ka na?
Not in the mood.
君が第一発見者なんだよね。最初に見たときどんな気持ちだった？
The media was still camped out around Aoba dorm. Actually, because of what had happened with Yui, there were more of them than ever. And now that we were victims, in their minds, that made them our self-appointed heroic defenders. They'd gotten even bolder.
犯人は君の親友だって噂だけど、本当なの？すごいショックだよね。どうやって謝罪してほしい？
友達はなんでこんなことをしたと思う？何か悩んでいたとか、心当たりはないかな？
うるさい。お前ら全員ユイと同じにしてやろうか。
Oh. I was gonna say, did I shatter their cameras? Several of the lights the reporters were holding shattered at the same time. Then I suddenly came to my senses, shocked at the strong impulse I'd felt at the eerie light the D-sword was giving off.
今日はまだ11月2日。問題の日は明後日だ。それまでは大丈夫。何も起こらない。何も。
I pushed my way past the media and ran inside the dorm, repeating the words as if they were a magic spell.
ただいま。
I tried to calm myself down and act like nothing had happened. If Yuto heard yelling, it would wake him up.
おかえりなさい。タクルさん。
I could see tiny little Uki from the kitchen. We still weren't used to calling each other by our first names.
晩ご飯もうすぐできますから。
ありがとう。
None of us, including Dad, really wanted to eat anything, but she made dinner every night anyway. That was her own way of struggling against the sadness, I thought.
父さんとクルスは？
先生は警察です。ユイさんのことで。
そっか。
ののさんは診察室でユウトくんの看病を。
うん。なあ、ウキ。
はい。
今日はまだいいけど、あさって11月4日はそうやって一人になっちゃ絶対にダメだ。みんなと一緒にいること。あと誰に誘われても絶対に外へ出ないこと。いいな。
Actually, obviously making sure you're not alone is a good thing. I would say bare minimum, party of 3. Hook up with 2 other people, because we saw last time what happened when somebody hooked up with 1 other person.
それはタクルさんでもですか？
ああ、そうだ。誰も信用しちゃダメだ。
I remembered what Orimura had said, and my heart ached a little. Uki mumbled to herself for a moment, seemingly considering my words. Then she nodded.
ちょっとユウトの様子を見てくる。
じゃあ、ののさんにもご飯だって伝えてください。ユウトくんのお世話は私が交代しますから。
わかった。
I left the dining room and quietly went down the stairs to the clinic. When I opened the door, Yuto was lying on the bed and looking up at the ceiling. He was showing more emotion than he had been right after it happened, and he would answer when you spoke to him now. but he was being given strong psychotropics and spent most of his time asleep or barely alert.
言うと、
ああ、おかえりなさい。
どうだ、具合は。
He sounds out of it.
うん、よくなったよ。もう平気。
Yeah, but like that, I mean, this is better, but that's not how he talks. He forced himself to smile, probably because he didn't want to worry me. But the muscles that controlled his face weren't working the way he wanted yet, and it looked more like he was about to cry.
クルスは
I looked around and didn't see her near the bed.
あっち。今眠ってるから、そっとしておいてあげて。
I found her at the desk where Dad kept his work computer. She was face down on the desk with her long hair covering the top half of her body. Her breathing was gentle and rhythmic. The computer was still on. She must have fallen asleep while working on it.
のの姉ちゃん、あんまり寝てないみたいなんだ。僕の世話だけじゃなくて、生徒会のお仕事とかいっぱいあるみたいで、ずっとパソコンに向かってるし。僕ならもう大丈夫って言ってるのに。
大丈夫かどうか診断するのは父さんだろ。
そうだけど。
お前はあんまり難しいこと考えるなよ。早く元気になれって。
Neither of us would bring up Yui. We'd probably have to wait until Yuta was a lot more grown up. I tapped him on the shoulder, then grabbed the blanket off the other bed and softly walked over to Kurusu. Even with the heater on, I figured she might catch cold if she's left in a place like this. But I fell silent when I saw what was on the computer screen. It was displaying several sites that dealt with the return of the new generation madness. And at the very front was the video from Don't Look at Me. It was paused at the moment where the victim realized he'd sliced up his own arm and passed out in a puddle of blood, tears, and drool. I mean, yeah, but this has got to just be a screen cap from earlier in the game, right? Because that's not cheese. Why am I seeing it as cheese? There was a newly bought notebook next to her, filled with words in her pretty handwriting. Some of it was names, locations, and times that overlap with what we had on the map on the clubroom wall, but Kurusu had made several sharp insights of her own. For example, Incident 2. Why didn't the victim put on makeup for her last street performance? The mind controller is male? He didn't consider a girl would need to put on makeup? That's a good question, actually, but we know from the prologue, to hell with it, I'm fine with my scarecrow face. Good guess, Kurusu, but wrong this time. I mean, not necessarily wrong it's male, but the logic behind it is incorrect. Senri's ID card. No one but me knew that I buried it under the memorial in remembrance of her. The killer had to read my mind to dig it up? The killer can read minds? Which means there are two killers. One who can read minds, and one who can control minds. Supports Takuru's multiple killers theory. There is a page after page of it.
この短期間でよくこれだけ。でも何のために？
She must have sensed that I was staring at her because she moved a little. Her almond eyes slowly opened, then she blinked several times. And then she raised her head and looked at me.
ああ、なんだ、タクルか。おかえりなさい。
ただいま。ほら、毛布。風邪ひくぞ。
やだ、私居眠りしちゃってたのね。ありが。
And then she seemed to realize her mistake. She quickly reached out her hand to turn off the computer monitor. I grabbed it.
ね、タクル、これは。
I refused to let go of her hand.
一体何なの、タクル。
それはこっちのセリフだ。さっきのあれが生徒会の仕事だっていうのか。
Kurusu flinched a little. This was the exact opposite of how things usually went between us. It was always me who did the flinching. Well, I.
そうだけど、
そんなわけあるかよ。
痛いからいい加減手離して。
But I kept holding on and glaring at her a little. At first she squirmed a little, but eventually her naturally strong will won out and she glared right back at me. I don't know how long we stayed like that, but surprisingly it was Kurusu who gave up first. She silently put her other hand on top of mine.
ごめんなさい。だから話して。
I relaxed my grip a little and shook her hand away.
なんで一人であんなことしてんだよ。まさか自分一人だけで真犯人を探そうなんて思ってないよな。誰も巻き込まないようにとか。
それは。
僕が同じようなことをしたら怒るくせに自分はいいのかよ。自分はいいのかよ。もしも犯人に目をつけられてユイみたいにされたらどうするんだ。そんなの冗談じゃない。
タクル。
Kurusu fell silent for a second after I spat out the words. And then she started to talk hesitantly as if she were uncertain of how to say what she was thinking.
前にタクルが言ってたでしょ。事件が自分のことを追いかけてきてるみたいだって。
ああ。
私もそうなの。この事件に千里が関わってるって知った時から私はいつも彼女に追われてる。
Senri? Senri Minamisawa? What did she mean she was following her? Didn't she say she died in the Shibuya earthquake? Then that was a lie? And Senri was after not only me, but Kurusu? She must have sensed my confusion because Kurusu shook her head.
千里は地震で死んだわ。それは間違いない。私を追いかけてくるのは、なんて言ったらいいのかな。彼女の亡霊なの。
My mouth hung open as I struggled to understand what she just said. I'd never imagined she'd use an unscientific word like ghost.
なんだよそれ。意味がわからない。
ごめんなさい。今はまだこれしか言えないの。話す勇気が出ないから。
Her face twisted in sorrow.
そうか。クルスにはまだたくさん僕に言えないことがあるんだな。
By the time I realized what I'd said, it was too late. The pain in my heart had come back and the words had slipped out of my mouth. Even after I'd sworn I was never going to say those words to her again. Just like I expected, she looked even sadder.
クルス、違うんだ。今のは本心じゃない。
けど
前にも言っただろ。今の僕はもう昔とは違うって。それに僕はちゃんと今ここにいるじゃないか。まだ怒ってたり嫌ってたりしたら戻ってくるはずがない。
Kurusu sat down on the bed, exhausted. I suddenly realized that you two had left. It was dinner time after all, and he'd probably thought the two of us wanted to be alone. There was a long, long silence after that. Neither Kurusu nor I said a word. We just stared at different spots in the room. And eventually Kurusu started to talk.
いつかいつかタクルにだけは私が言えないでいること、何もかも全部話したいと思ってる。そのせいでまた嫌われちゃうかもしれないけど、それでも構わない。その時はちゃんと最後まで聞いてくれる？
あ
りがとう。
And finally she smiled. It was a weak smile, which looked as though it could fade at any second.
ねえ タクル。
ん？
覚えてる？地震の後、昏睡から目を覚ました日のこと。
あの時は頭がぼーっとしててあんまり。でも最初に見たのがクルスの泣き顔だったことだけははっきり覚えてるよ。
そう。
今考えると不思議だな。お前なんで泣いてたんだ？
嬉しかったからよ、目を覚ましてくれて。
どうして？あの時の僕とクルスはまだ赤の他人だったろ。
タクルはそうだったかもしれないけど、私はタクルのことを1年以上ずっと面倒見てきたのよ。私にとっては大切な家族の一員になってたもの。だからお姉ちゃんはタクルのことなら何でも知ってるのよ。恥ずかしくて他の女の子には言えないようなことまで全部ね。
やめろよ。そういうこと言うのはなしって約束だろ。
Just call it out.
そうだったわね。ごめん。もう言わない。
And then there was another silence. It was as if the two of us were trapped by memories of the past and had forgotten that time even existed. And then time started to move again.
あ、そっか。晩ご飯ほったらかしだった。悪い。
いえ、すぐに温め直しますから。ごめんね、ウキちゃん。
Uki may or may not have been able to tell what was going on between us, but she left for the upstairs dorm without another word.
タクル、先に行ってて。
わかった。あ、クルス。
As she got up for the bed and headed for the dorm, I called out to her.
何？
Her soft chestnut hair flew upwards as she spun around.
僕はさ。
As I looked into her beautifully colored eyes, I was finally able to say it. Oh, are we finally doing the name?
もう家族の誰も失いたくないんだ。
How long had it been since I'd called Kurusu part of my family? Her eyes went wide for a moment, and then suddenly she started to cry.
タクル。
だから本当に頼む。やめてくれ。一人で犯人探しなんて危険なこと。もしもお前まであんなことに、ユイみたいなことになったら。あれ、情けないな。泣くなよ。僕は情けない。
わかった。もうしない。だからお願い。タクルも約束して。私を残して行ってしまわないって。私を置いて消えてしまわないって。私耐えられない。こんなに悲しいの耐えきれない。
She probably didn't even know what she was doing, but she ran up to me and buried her face in my chest. She wrapped her arms around me as if she refused to let me go. And cried for a long, long time, calling out Yui's name in a tiny voice.
クルス。
Until now, I'd always been bothered by the idea of a family. I thought it was just a heavy, annoying chain that kept me stuck in one place.
でもそうじゃなかった。
Dad, Yui, Yuto, Kurusu, and even Uki now. They were all part of my family. It was only then that it really hit me that Yui was gone forever. And I held Kurusu's frail body tight and cried like a baby for a long, long time. November 3rd. Getting ever closer. The school was empty since it had closed for Culture Day. Of course, no one from the newspaper club was there and the room was empty and quiet. I'd been there alone since lunchtime. I wasn't sure how many hours I'd been staring at the map looking for a clue that pointed toward the real killer. I had until tonight. Once it was past midnight, November 4th would be here. And then the final return of the New Generation Madness murder could occur at any time. The killer was probably getting ready right now. Who was their last target? Was it me? Arimura? Uki? Or someone I didn't know at all? Arimura had already said she would spend the night at Aoba dorm. I'd asked her to stay with Uki and the others at all times. With her power, we should be able to avoid a repeat of what happened to Yui. And I? I would find the real killer and make sure they came after me. And then, I'd take revenge for Yui. Yesterday I'd spoken with Arimura and the others and gone over the things that didn't make sense. When we talked, there were a few things we'd left to come back to later. Why did the policeman ignore us when he saw us inside the Love Hotel wearing Hekiho uniforms? The answer was probably what I'd initially thought, that the officer was being mind-controlled. The only reason I could think of was that the killer wanted me to be at the scene. But I couldn't figure out why. What if I hadn't gone there? Why would that cause a problem for them? Oh, interesting. I might not have noticed the connection between the stickers. My power was telekinesis. Telekinesis. I might not have seen a person die in front of me for real. We're going with stickers. That's right. I'd taken that video without even thinking about it, and after analyzing it 100 times, I'd found the sumo sticker. And then I'd found the other stickers of the other murder sites. Then I made a video connecting the murders to the sumo stickers and uploaded it to the internet. And because of that video, our minor little newspaper club site had gotten an incredible number of hits. I frowned and crumpled up the paper where I had written newspaper club site hits and threw it in the trash. And then I glared at the map again. I looked at the next note that we'd marked to come back to. The real reason that our site had gotten so many hits was that Watabe, the famous internet journalist, had gotten involved. That's why he decided to hold an interview with us, but just like I said yesterday, I couldn't figure out why. The interview would have done nothing but fuel the flame war, so I'd guessed that Watabe had already been under the control of the killer. Who stood to gain by having Watabe come to Hekiho? The Hekiho Student Council, the newspaper club, or the literature club? Well, I mean, us, of course. We're the ones being interviewed. I glanced at the paper I'd just thrown in the trash that read Newspaper Club Site Hits. We were already kind of famous because of the video we'd uploaded about the sumo stickers. The arrival of Watabe, the famous reporter, only increased that. And then, just as the discussion was about to start, Watabe had become a victim of the return of the New Generation Madness. Talk about sensational. And after that, the newspaper club got deeper and deeper into the case. And then the case became more than just something that we reported on. We went through things that no high school newspaper club would ever experience and felt excitement, terror, and surprise. Part of that was the attack on me and Arimura by the pyrokinetic. Even then the killer had shown signs of toying with us. Yeah, she just walked away. But the killer had Senri Minawasawa's ID card. That was what had fooled us and had also almost sent the case off in the wrong direction.
あの ID カードの謎だけは昨べようやく解けた。
Because I'd seen this about Senri Minamisawa's ID card in Kurusu's notes. It was under the memorial, but the killer read her mind and dug it up. Hid it in her room, but the killer read her mind and stole it. Kurusu remembered the design, and killer read her mind and copied it. Well, no, we just said it was under the memorial. That's right. This is what it said in Kurusu's notes. Senri's ID card, no one but me knew that I buried it under the memorial in remembrance of her. The killer had to read my mind to dig it up? The killers can read minds? It was safe to assume that she was right, and the killer had read her mind and taken the ID card from the memorial. But what was the reason?
真犯人はどうして南沢千里が僕を襲ってきてるように見せたかったんだ。一体何を狙って。
Tried to expose human experiments by making her famous? Tried to terrify me by bringing up my past trauma? Tried to drive Ito, who loved Senri, into committing crimes? Well, we already know Ito did not actually love Senri. It was me. We kept remembering the hospital, which, by the way, we'd been dreaming about endlessly. The game hadn't really brought that up for a long time, but it mentioned when we first streamed it that that was just a recurring thing for us. That's right, it felt like the killer was using Senri Minamisawa to take advantage of my trauma. In fact, that felt terrified many times because of that.
いや、ちょっと待ってくれ。ってことは、
I spoke aloud without even realizing it.
真犯人の狙いは新聞部じゃなく、この僕だっていうのか。
Isn't that we thought from day one? Like, we left Senri to die, so she wants revenge. Even if it turns out it's not Senri, yeah, we're the target. And I keep saying probably Serika too, because she was with us. Not that that's come into play yet.
そんなバカな。
There was no way they could have committed all these murders just to mess with me. It made no sense, and it was far too elaborate. I will admit that's the part that bothers me. Why kill all these psychics? And for all the effort they put into it, there was something that didn't make sense about the incident with Ito and Yui. That was... oh boy. Revenge for a girl you once loved, too pathetic to be a motive? From the order, Uki, not Yui, should have been the next target. Ooh. It makes no sense to turn Ito into a killer if motive is vengeance. He didn't know her. Yeah.
そうなんだ。あの事件、伊藤を犯人に仕立て上げる意味が全くない。いや、それどころか、伊藤を犯人にするのは明らかに間違ってる。
If the point was making it look like this was Senri Minamisawa's revenge, there were other people who would make more sense. For example, though it was scary even to think about it, Senri Minamisawa's best friends, Kurusu and Kawahara. If one of them had committed the murder, the police never would have become suspicious at all. It's possible that we might not have even figured out that mind control was involved. This whole thing could have ended with the assumption that it was a plot to get revenge for an old friend.
なのに、犯人はどうして無関係な伊藤を選んだ？
And why do they make him tell lies that would be easily found out? What was the point?
なんだか、伊藤はあくまでも操り人形で、最初から真犯人が別にいると告白してるみたいじゃん。
I mean, that is true. If Ito's lies were easily exposed, then that reveals to us that mind control exists and makes us paranoid of all of our friends, because anyone could become the next person who's mind controlled. Ooh. And then I suddenly stood up from my chair. That's what that was.
それが狙いなのか?
The killer deliberately chose Ito, who had no motive at all, to commit the crime? Of course we realized that immediately and started looking even harder for the real killer. But none of the cops except for Shinjo would believe in psychic powers. Add in the media speculation and the public's confusion and interest would only grow. That was exactly what had happened. More and more pundits and commentators were arguing over whether Ito, whom they always called Boy A, was really the killer. Is that the chaos part of this game, Chaos Child? And of course, multiple threads showed up on 8chan simultaneously declaring both his innocence and his guilt. There were even threads speculating about who the true killer might be, and they showed no signs of stopping. And tomorrow was the 4th. From midnight tonight to midnight tomorrow, the whole city would be waiting with bated breath to see the killer's next move.
これが全て犯人の思い通りだとしたら
It was like they were challenging me to a game. They lured me in with the return of the new generation madness, which they knew I'd take an interest in. They used Senri Minamisawa to drive me into a corner from which I couldn't escape. They were moving everyone around for their own ends, both wrong-siders and self-proclaimed right-siders, like chess pieces on a board. You know, I'm still wondering about that one scene we saw way earlier in the game, the interlude, where a bunch of people in line at the store had the sticker masks. What was that? And they wanted me, the other player, to try and stop the last murder on November 4th. I put my hand on my forehead and stared at the map, unable to believe it.
たったそれだけのために
They killed all those people for that? That's why they did that to Yui?
違う妄想だこんなの全部僕の妄想に決まってる
Yeah, I gotta admit, that's pretty egotistical. Like, all this was about me. I could hear that I was whispering to myself.
そうさこの犯行の裏にはもっとすごい陰謀があるに違いないんだ社会全体を揺るがすような壮大で緻密な陰謀が
And we'd been caught up in that huge plan, and that's why this was happening to us. That had to be it. Ooh. Suddenly I heard the sound of a ringing phone. I quickly looked around for the source. It was my smartphone, which I'd kept inside my bag. I quickly pulled it out and looked at the screen.
新庄さん
Shinjo had been visiting Ito in the hospital every day since he was the one in charge of Yui's case. If he was calling, that meant... I forced myself to stay calm as I hit the answer button.
宮代君か
はい伊藤目を覚ましたんですか
ああ2時間ほど前だ
2時間ってなんでもっと早く知らせてくれないんです
無茶を言わないでくれ他の捜査員が病室を出ていくタイミングを待ってたんだこうして君に電話してること自体処分者なんだからな
で伊藤は無事なんですね
ああ意識レベルは改善されてきた話もできるただどうだ久野里さん
I could hear Kunosato's voice on the other end of the phone.
大脳新皮質だけでなく海馬や言語中枢にもダメージを負っている無理をさせたらその後のことは知らないぞ
という状態だそれでも伊藤君がどうしても君と話したいと言ってる
はい
いいか変わるぞ
はい
I gulped down the saliva in my mouth. Suddenly I felt a terrible uncertainty in my heart. What was I supposed to say to Ito? Even if he'd been mind-controlled, he was still the one who chopped up my little sister. But I didn't hear any sound coming from the phone.
伊藤
I heard the sound of a deep breath on the other side of the phone.
伊藤大丈夫か
In the end, that was all I could say.
宮代
あ僕だ
許してくれ頼む
何
俺はゆいちゃんのこと殺す
いいそれ以上言わなくていい
I tried to cut him off, but he ignored me and started crying.
でもゆいちゃんはお前の大事な妹じゃないかなのに俺がこの手でダメだ俺が死んだくらいじゃこの罪は償えないだろ宮代
なんだよそれ死ぬとか言うな
しっかりしろ伊藤君
Shinjo's yells overlap with my words.
いいか僕はお前がユイにあんなことをしたとは思ってない本当の犯人は別にいる
本当の犯人
ああお前は無実なんだよ 思い出してくれ。お前誰かに何かされたんだよな。なあ。
誰かに何か。
そうだ。お前に思考誘導をかけたやつは誰なんだ。
Suddenly, I heard him scream in pain on the other side of the phone.
伊藤。
どうした？おい。
ストップだ。やめさせろ。脳波がおかしい。
何？
思考誘導が残ってる。情報を引き出せないようにしてあるぞ。これは。
え？
このままだと海馬をやられる。
聞こえたか、宮代君。終わりだ。切るぞ。
Damn.
待ってくれ。電話切らないでくれ。
Ito screams cut him off.
思い出せそうなんだ。もう少しで何か。伊藤君。
伊藤、もういい。やめろ。
But Ito didn't stop. He was trying his best, enduring terrible pain to tell me something.
あれは確か物質だ。
Oh?
物質？
いつだったかわからない。俺のもう一人誰かがいて。
Wakui? The supervisor guy for the club? Unless this was off-screen.
ダメだ。もうよせ。うるさい。まだ宮代と話してんだ。いるな。
伊藤。
ゆいちゃんの仇が取れるなら、こんな頭どうなったって。
Even from here, I could sense his incredible determination.
聞いてるか、宮代。
あ、聞いてる。
そいつとしばらく話してて、そしたら、そうだ、いきなりスマホでお前の写真を見せてきたんだ。
It is indeed them. Unless he's using a weird singular them for mystery purposes.
僕の写真？
あれはどんな写真だったか。でも驚いたのは覚えてる。なんで驚いたのか。そうだ、宮代が楽しそうにしてたんだ。青葉寮の人たちとあんな宮代初めて見たから。
Oh, that was our precious family photo? A picture from Aoba dorm? What was he talking about? Well, yeah, it's when they got our phone, right? Like, Uki got the phone, maybe it was Mystery Old Woman. There were no photos like that.
それでそうだ、そいつは笑いながら指さしたんだよ。この子を殺せって。
Yui. It was Yui. The killer had a picture of me and Yui together.
それで俺怖くなって逃げようとしたら、いきなりドアからもう一人入ってきて、その二人がやめろ、やめてくれ、何すんだよ、やめろ。
伊藤、伊藤。
おい、伊藤君。
His mind had finally reached its limits. There was one last scream of terror, and then nothing. He didn't answer no matter how many times I yelled his name. All I heard was meaningless mumbling. He didn't seem to know where he was or what he was doing anymore.
宮代君、残念だが、もう電話は。
久野里さんに代わってください。
え？
いいから早く。
A moment later, Kunosato answered the phone in a cold voice.
何か用か。
お願いです。人を助けてください。
こいつに無理をさせたのはお前だろう。今さら何を言っている。
この事件が解決したら僕のこと実験台にしたっていいです。だからお願いします。
I heard a mocking laughter in her voice.
ほう。今の言葉、確かに聞いたぞ。
Yeah, really.
やりたければ勝手にしてください。だから糸を。
わかった。できるだけのことはしてみよう。ただし、過度の期待はするなよ。
Then she hung up the phone. No matter how many times I called back, she didn't answer. Maybe one of the other police officers besides Shinjo had come into the room.
糸。
At the very end, he'd endured terrible pain to give me that information. Thinking back, it was incredibly important. It was a winter evening, and still there was a cold sweat forming on my forehead.
伊藤に思考誘導をかけた犯人が伊藤と一緒にこの部室に。
I tried to drive my tired, exhausted mind to fit in this last piece of the puzzle.
そんなバカな。それじゃまるで真犯人が。
Like the real killer was one of us. Watch it be Kazuki at the last second. Or even Kuwahara, he showed up once. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But that was the hint Ito had given me. And if that hint was also...
犯人からのメッセージだとしたら。
The fact that Ito had woken up right before November 4th. The fact that he'd given me that information. It all seemed like part of the killer's next move.
くそ。そっちがその気ならこっちだってやってやる。
It does indeed sound like we're up to the task. But for now, it's time to stop the installment. Well, we certainly made a lot of progress today, didn't we? We had some personal family moments, came to some more conclusions at our bulletin board, and even Ito woke up and gave us what may be a key piece of information. Could the true killer be one of us? I guess we'll have to find out. Until next time, everyone.